Okay, so Blade Runner 2049. If you have not seen Blade Runner 2049, and judging by the slightly, although not horrific, box opening weekend box office, many of you have not. Go see Blade Runner 2049. Holy shit, it's good. It's really good. It's all right. Well, let's talk real quick here. Briefly about the original Blade Runner with Harrison Ford and directed by Ridley Scott, of which there are apparently 7 to 8 different releases of and different cuts, including apparently the last cut, the final cut. It'd be horrifically hilarious if they release one after that, but supposedly that is the definitive Ridley Scott version of the film. I'll be honest, I saw the director's cut a long time ago when I was a teenager at a party. I was tired. I don't remember it terribly well. I remember it having a really cool aesthetic, and I could clearly see its influence on a lot of other movies that I really liked. Plus, it had Harrison Ford, who I'm always a fan of. But honestly, the film struck me as a little bit slow. And maybe that's because I was young and exhausted from playing video games all night. However, it needs to be stated this. Even if you have not seen Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, I think Blade Runner 2049 is absolutely worth watching because it's an astounding piece of science fiction on its own. Now, the original Blade Runner focused on the idea of Harrison Ford character developing empathy as he hunted down androids, or as they were called in the movie, replicants. Also note, they were called something completely different in the book, but that's besides the point. Of course, the original story based on a book by Philip K. Dick called it's like Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep or something. Electric Sheep? I don't know. It's been a while. But so Blade Runner 2049 is here, and it picks up in a very sort of clearly the same world, but set couple decades after the first movie. This time, the original corporation, the Tyrell Corporation, was taken over by a wealthy billionaire named Wallace, who, as the movie goes on, clearly has a super god complex. And the reason that the Tyrell Corporation got bought out by the Wallace Corporation is because the Tyrell Corporation had a lot of setbacks when the androids started staging numerous rebellions. During the rebellions, the Wallace Corporation managed to buy up all of Tyrell's stuff and basically become the owner of all their patents. Only the Wallace Corporation decided what they really wanted to do was make androids who didn't have free will and could basically just be programmed to do whatever they wanted, making them less androids and more robots. In this world of Blade Runner, we meet our new Blade Runner, who is actually a replicant whose job is to hunt down other replicants. Of course, played by Ryan Gosling. He is on a routine hunt for a renegade replicant, played by Dave Bautista, who does a really nice and actually kind of understated job. Well, understated before he slams Ryan Gosling through a wall. But when they arrest Bautista, what they find on his property is what they initially believed to be the skeleton of a human woman, because it died in childbirth. Only for them to discover when they find an ident on the skeleton that it is in fact the body of a replicant, because apparently replicants have very human parts despite being androids. And thus begins the hunt to hunt down this child and eliminate him before people can find out that replicants can become capable of reproducing, which would, of course, totally change the world and make replicants alive, or considered alive by most people. And so Ryan Gosling's character, originally named K, which is actually just the first letter of his like serial code, decide is tasked with hunting down this child. Now, that being said, there are a number of twists and turns along the way, and it's really well done and really cool. And I'll talk more about that in the spoilers section. Some things I do want to talk about before I get into the spoilers is, first of all, Harrison Ford is in the movie, as you can tell from the trailers, as his character Deckard. But his character's not as in much of the film as you might think. He's sort of in the last act of the film. He's an important part of the last act, but he doesn't really show up until that point because they're sort of looking for him for a good portion of the movie. Although they don't always know that that's who they're looking for, but eventually Ryan Gosling figures out that's who he's looking for. And so yeah, but one of the things I really enjoyed about the film is actually, I really gotta start using IMDb to look up these actors' names. But Ryan Gosling's character has a sort of hologram girlfriend or wife. And like their relationship for being a program and a machine is fascinating. And like genuinely one of the most human parts of the movie. His hologrammatic girlfriend, early on in the film, he gives her a present, which is this remote emanator that allows him to generate her hologram wherever he takes his little pen thing. And just like her reaction to being free from the track in his apartment where she normally is stuck is astounding. And just her reaction to having new experiences is really beautiful. And really makes her character superhuman, even though she's technically a light projection. The movie also features her character is kind of an expansion on some of the similar ideas that were carried out in the movie Her. If you like that, it's sort of a similar experience to that. There's even a sex scene that is interestingly similar, but also different and trippier than Her. But sort of runs along similar concepts between her and Ryan Gosling. It's pretty trippy, and it's honestly, it's just a really, really good movie. I definitely have to recommend that you go out and see Blade Runner 2049. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It is smart science fiction. It really makes you question what it means to be alive. I'm going to talk about spoilers here in a second, so just like, subscribe, comment, share. Definitely go see Blade Runner 2049. I give it a 9.5. It's going to be a little bit slow for people, but I went into it thinking it was going to be slow, and it was actually not as slowly paced as I anticipated. I was engaged almost pretty much the whole way through the movie. Okay, so we're going to talk spoilers now. So spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Those fingers really should go the other direction. 3, 2, 1. That does not feel as satisfying. Spoilers. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this. Now, one of the things that occurs in the movie is that Ryan Gosling has this memory, which he thinks is an implanted memory in his brain, and of his childhood. And this is a normal thing for replicants to have, is fake childhood memories, because it helps develop them psychologically and makes them stable. Ryan Gosling's character has this dream about a horse, and as a child hiding it in a furnace. And the thing is that horse is ultimately a clue to the identity of the child. And this is where things get super spoilery. So if you have not seen the movie, you should really stop watching right now. Ryan Gosling spends most of the movie, and this is really one of the things that I really enjoy about the movie. He spends most of the movie thinking that he is this Messiah child, that the memory he has lines him up to be that Messiah child. And while I was enjoying this as I was watching the movie, part of me was thinking, oh, it's a little bit cliche, making the main character the Messiah child. However, the twist at the end is that he's not. The Messiah child is a girl, and actually a memory programmer who has been hidden in plain sight. He only believes he is the Messiah child because he was a deliberate decoy, someone who was deliberately given that memory to confuse and throw people off the trail. And it's a really good twist. It's one I kind of understood was a possibility, but it's very satisfying when it comes around to that because it really gives more to the film noir feel of the movie, where his character is just this hard-nosed detective in the wrong place at the wrong time, getting caught up in this. Although I can't really say in the wrong place at the wrong time because he is the decoy. He was always he was chosen early on to be the decoy to keep the girl safe. Oh, I just gave away the girl. This is a spoiler section, so who cares? The parts with Harrison Ford and Jared Leto are really interesting. Especially considering that Ryan Gosling's character, when confronting Harrison Ford, thinks that Harrison Ford is his father. I couldn't quite tell if the film actually answered one of the mysteries of the original Blade Runner, which is Deckard a replicant? And honestly, I think from some of the things that happen in this movie, I think he is a replicant for a couple of reasons. He might not be, but I think he is. I think this movie kind of confirms that Harrison Ford's character was a replicant. Although I'd have to watch it again to confirm that. It's worth noting in the book he is not a replicant, but replicants play a hoax on him and trick him into thinking he is one. But yeah, the whole thing, Harrison Ford does a nice job. Like I said, he's not as big of a part as you might think, but he is super important at the end. And then you have Jared Leto as Wallace. Whew. 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 Creepy. He's a blind. He's not only is he blind and has a God complex, but he's also clearly a metaphor for God. Not a nice God either. He basically wants to find the child so that he can produce self-replicating replicants so that he can have more slaves, essentially, so that it'd be easier to produce this slave labor force. And that's sort of what he's all about. The film has a number of other great actors. I think the police detective is Robin Wright. If I confuse that, I apologize. I confuse actors all the time on this channel. Some of them more embarrassingly than others. But police detective does a great job. Then there's also Wallace has a replicant whose name is Love, who is his special replicant, who actually has been given the ability to lie, and she can kick people's asses pretty effectively. And yeah. There's simultaneously a lot of room for a sequel, but at the same time, it's a gloriously self-contained story, while at the same time being connected to the previous film. I'm sure there's lots of Easter eggs that I missed because I can't really remember the first movie, but I have to recommend it. I just do. If you haven't already seen it, you're one of those weird people who like spoilers before you see the movie. Although studies indicate that a lot of people actually do enjoy spoilers before going to see the movie, which may be why mainstream audiences would never be able to handle Mother. So yeah. Definitely go see Blade Runner 2049. So far, I think it's actually the best movie I've seen this year. I haven't seen every movie, but this may be the best one I've seen. It's right up there with some of my favorites from the year, including Logan and Lego Batman. Both fantastic films. So definitely go check out Blade Runner 2049. I thought I would have more to say about it, but I guess I'm going to stop there. It's a fantastic film. Check it out. Like, subscribe, comment. You know the deal.